Welcome back to Seriously Funny. I'm your host, Mashnor Kabir, and I saved the world in 2012. This week, it has been a few days since the beginning of 2022. I still hate saying that, to be honest. Big party horns, you did it, another year. Hey, you're still listening to this podcast. Means a lot. I don't know how many of you make New Year's resolutions, whether you do or don't. This episode is useful because goals aren't just for the New Year's. Oh, and make sure you hit the buttons, review buttons, like buttons, etc. Also, with that, the Seriously Funny Clips channel it's up now. If you want to go listen to little bite-sized pieces of the podcast, it's not like every piece of the podcast gets cut up. It's just certain little highlights I think are worth putting into a thing. Some of them are like 40 minutes, some of them are like 7 minutes, but if you always have time to listen to an entire episode, but just in case you want to, Seriously Funny Clips, it's up, it's there. You can go ahead and listen to that if you would like to, and that would be fine. Of course, you should listen to the actual podcast as well. But the first point that we have here is more on the whole idea of the setting goals and setting New Year's resolutions thing. Goals aren't just for New Year's, and there's a number of people, I used to be one of them, that thought that resolutions were stupid and you should just live. New Year's is just another day. Unfortunately, I realized since then that not all people are robots like me, so people like celebrating things. That's fine. I may not understand with my robot powers, my chipset isn't on that level of quantum computing, I guess. So, maybe I just can't do it. What are you gonna do? But setting goals is a pretty good idea. To give a TLDR on this section, it helps give you direction, a GPS, a compass that you can follow. If you feel lost, if you feel like you don't know, if you don't know anymore, just in general, if you set a goal, you have a way to go. You never need to sit there in the dark. There will always be a light at the end of the tunnel that you're trudging towards. It's important that you get that though. Not everyone has a light at the end of the tunnel. Those that don't make goals, those that don't find the opportunity to make goals, not everyone has a direction. Some people really do just lie on the ground, curl in a ball, and sit there. And that sucks. I've been there. You don't want that to happen. And we talked about it a little last episode, but one day, if you're lucky, you'll find a purpose. And that purpose will be your fattest compass. Every goal that you set will become more so a checkpoint rather than a flagpole. If you ever played Mario, you get the reference there. So if you play Mario, there's little flags that are like checkpoints. If you die, you go back to the checkpoint, and then at the end of the level, this is more in like Super Mario 3D or later Mario, I don't know when they started it. No, I think all Mario games have been like this. And then if you get at the end of the level, obviously you jump on top of the flagpole and pull it up like the big flag. But yeah, anyways, go play Mario. That's why setting goals are important, though. Goals give you a direction, something to go towards always, because being lost sucks. You don't want to be lost. Trust me, not a good time. Overall, yes, goals are important, regardless of what you're doing or what you think you want. It's a really good idea to do things that I'm going to do the things that I'm going to lay down in this episode. It just helps to clear your head out and make sure that you're clear on what you need to do. Before this section ends, in order for me to make time, I need to add a little bit here. So I'm going to tell you this. Humans are mere bundles of habits. As a psychologist, James Williams, once said, you are made up of a bunch of habits. Your life is really mostly, probably like 95%, just habits that you carry out. From how you brush your teeth in the morning, how you eat your food, how you lay down when you go to sleep, your life is made up of habits. Most New Year's resolutions, such as getting in shape, is a habit-centric goal. It's a habit that you want to build. So I'll give you a quick rundown on the habit cycle. Cue, routine, reward. You have a trigger, e.g. waking up. You have a routine, e.g. brushing your teeth, and a reward, e.g. that feeling of your mouth being colder than the ice of the frost age when you breathe. Love that. I'll save the rest for the last point in the episode though, so on to the next topic. Now that we know goals are cool, let's learn how to set effective, realistic, not completely unachievable, stupid, dumb goals. Someone once said, quote, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll hit a star, end quote, or something like that. No, false. First off, shooting for the moon is pretty hard. Do you know how many missions NASA failed to get there? Second, if you miss the moon, you're more likely just going to float in space for infinity until you die. You won't get to hit a star, you'll just be lost. Third, if you do hit a star, you'll burn to death before you can even come close to touching the stupid thing. So if you want to go shoot for the moon, let's make sure that we hit the moon. Because we go to space, or when we go to space, we're not exactly working off of numbers that are, quote, good enough. No, we want to get to the moon. Because if we don't hit the moon, we get a bunch of astronauts that are dead. And we don't want that. So let's make sure that our goals are succinct, achievable, realistic. You get the point. The question then is, what does it mean to be succinct, achievable, realistic, and getting the point? Well, that's up to you. You know what you can do and can't do, but here are a few good rules of thumb. Make sure that your goals are things that you can actually do. Say you want to start a YouTube channel. Don't make the goal of, I want to get 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. You can't actually do that. That's not a thing that you can do. It's not something you have control over per se. A better goal is, I want to make at least 2 quality videos per week. That's an actionable goal. That's a goal that you yourself can actually achieve with your power and just by doing something. It's you. And that's what we want. We want us to have the ability and the power to achieve our goals. We don't want it to be dependent on external factors. And so you can't, well, where was I? You can't go to sleep at 10 p.m. every day. You can, however, meditate and get into bed by 10. You can't lose 20 pounds in 3 months. You can go to the gym every other day. There's some things you can do and some things you can't do. You just can't actually make and force happen. The next thing is that you should start slow. Maybe going to the gym every other day, if you haven't gone to the gym in maybe your entire life, is a bit too much. Let's try at least twice a week maybe. And I'm not going to say to set your sights high, but set smaller goals and then you can slowly grow. If you go to the gym twice a week for a month, maybe you can do 3 days now. Don't push too hard, but don't let yourself, and don't make yourself too uncomfortable, but also don't get too comfortable. There's this precarious balance that you have to keep, but I think you can do it, so I believe in you. It's also important to remember that your goals can change. Not the small things like going to the gym. That shouldn't change. That's a habit that you should keep up with. But sometimes you genuinely find something that you don't want to do, something you aren't going to continue. I talked about this in my episode about quitting and the sunk cost fallacy, in which case it's fine to destroy the goal. It happens. More on that in the episode I just talked about quitting and the sunk cost fallacy. It was something like that. But yeah, sometimes you just don't want to do something. It happens. Don't feel too ashamed. Don't feel too bad. You're probably going to feel a little bad. It happens. It's part of being human. Not everyone is a effing robot. And so if you feel bad, feel bad. But sometimes you just got to quit, and that's fine. It happens. No shame in quitting. But maybe shame, but who cares? Shame is for losers. Don't do that. But yeah, the practical part of making these goals is writing them down. Get them out of your head. I always recommend pencil and paper, or paper and pencil, however you want to say it, for these things. But if you want to use notes or Notion, I won't tell you not to. Write down the goals and maybe write down small subtasks that you can achieve in order to get there. Here, maybe you could write down what you want to happen, like what the purpose of your actions are. So let's say that you make those 2 videos per day on the YouTube. Maybe you can above that write like the reason, maybe, or under it, I guess would be better. Maybe you can write under it like the reason, the purpose that I want to do this is to get X amount of subs. Hopefully, if it doesn't happen, that's fine, because the goal is the goal, but that's the purpose. It's or maybe you can make the purpose more broad, to gain more subscribers. And so if I were to write something like this, well, I want to make a podcast every week. I want to make sure I have time, or not have time. I make the time to split that podcast into clips in order to grow it more. Like, that's the purpose, to grow the podcast more. And then the purpose of that is really to have impact on the youth, to speak to the youth and to help move people in a better direction and talk about the things that we don't usually talk about. A lot of productivity YouTubers out there, but I haven't found many YouTubers really tackling the idea, the problem, and the ability and the way to find happiness and achieve that. And so that's what I want to give to people. That's the value that I want to give, because I've been through enough things, or certain things in my life, that make it so I understand happiness a little bit, to help convey to people. And so, yeah, I have no idea where I started there, but that's where I ended. But yeah, make sure, write down your goals. I think it's a great idea. So yeah. Writing down things is, subtasks that I said to add. There's some things that you want to accomplish within your goal. So maybe you want to make enough money to buy some new gear. I was looking at microphones today. Holy crap, XLR microphones are such an expensive initial investment. But yeah, subtasks, fine, happens, but try to break it down into, I want to say, keep it small. Don't have like 8 billion goals you're working towards all the time. That's a horrible idea. I want to say a maximum of 3. Don't try to do more than 3. It's not going to work out if you do. To be honest, I would even recommend lower than that, at 1 or 2 even. Most people it depends on your resilience and how good you are in general at keeping goals and maintaining habits and building habits and willpower and such. That we'll talk a little bit more about willpower in a second. But yeah, it depends on a lot of things, but generally 1 to 3 is like going to be the range. 3 is really an upper tier level. Most people should just stick to 1 goal, 2 goals maybe at a time, if they're like very separate things and they can be different. So obviously I have my goal of passing college, and then I have my goal of all of the content stuff that I do. And so writing things down is super powerful. I really believe that. I'm too lazy to get the studies that say writing things down is powerful. I'm sure they're there in the ether. Writing things down will clear your head and let you do things that you need to do. There's no reason for you to sit there and constantly think about what you need to do. That's why checklists are so powerful. And I am 100% sure about the research behind checklists. Surgeons have checklists for simple tasks to make sure that they don't leave a sponge inside of people. This is true. Pilots have checklists to make sure they don't take off without fuel. This is true. A lot of these complex jobs have really simple gates for safety. And usually for a lot of them, it is, my brain just completely died. Usually for a lot of them, it's a checklist. The final point here is how to actually go about achieving these goals. To be honest, if you listen to the last piece about subtasks, then it's pretty easy to achieve these goals. All you have to do is follow through with what you wrote down. Pretty simple. However, I'll give you a few things on how to make things easier. I don't have coffee today. I have hot chocolate. It's not hot chocolate anymore. It's mildly lukewarm chocolate now, but still pretty good. This should be my recommendation for the week, hot chocolate. The first is more on the habit cycle. Cue, routine, reward. It's not inaccurate to say that habits follow the law of conservation. It's hard to create and destroy habits. It can break the law of conservation, absolutely, but it's generally will follow. It's much easier to convert one habit into another than it is to completely start a new habit or completely destroy a habit. Say you snack too much and you want to eat healthier. And you want to eat healthier. Goodness gracious. You want to change the snacking habit into a healthier habit. So you have a cue, which is the hunger and the craving for your Oreos. The routine was eating your goldfish. However, we want to change that to, say, apples, mangoes, maybe. Mangoes are fire. We'll change the routine, and the reward will still be, a kind of sugar. Fruits have sugar in them, just like your goldfish and your Oreos. And do goldfish have I don't think goldfish has sugar in it. It has some cheese and crackers aren't. Yeah, it has salt on it. I don't know. I'm sure there's some manner of sugar in there. But anyways, it tastes good. It hits certain parts of your brain. Fruits will also turn on those parts of your brain. But apples and fruits are quite a lot healthier than Oreos, goldfish, and Cheez-Its. If you want to change a habit, you have to identify the cue, change the routine. You also have to have a good bit of self-awareness to accept the fact that you have a habit you want to change. And you need awareness to quickly catch the cue whenever it comes up so that you can execute a different routine. And that's where the meditation piece comes in. Of course, there's a meditation piece. Of course, there's always a meditation piece. And so that is that awareness for knowing when the cue comes up, that really does come mostly from meditation. That's going to help give you the self-awareness that you need in order to be more aware. Mindful, whatever the word is, you get the point. Although it's not impossible to start a habit from scratch or destroy a habit completely, it's very possible. It is really, really hard. And that leads to the second tip on making things easier, which is honestly its own episode. And I am working on it. The research is more or less done. I'm writing a course for Listenable. I have to write some stuff and some other stuff. But for now, I'll give you this. To make things easier for yourself, make things easier for yourself. Say you want to either learn how to play the guitar or you want to play it more often. You buy a guitar, you stick it into your closet, and you tell yourself you'll practice for an hour every day at a specific time of the day. And then you don't. You keep waiting, you keep watching YouTube. Say you want to read more, you buy a book, you put it on your shelf, and you say you'll read every day before bed for 30 minutes. And then you don't. You scroll through Instagram for another hour. It's super hard to be a willpower god. Most of us can't do things we don't want to do over and over. Your brain wasn't made to go from task to task and be extremely flexible. It was made to be efficient. And apparently it's efficient to keep scrolling through Instagram. So the way that we can make habits easier to make is by making them easy. Rather than keeping the guitar in the closet, leave it in front of the desk. Rather than keeping the book on the shelf, put it on the couch and put the remote batteries 20 seconds away from the remote. And 20 seconds is enough to let you do that thing that you know you want to do. Make it easier to achieve your goals. Keep everything you need quick to access. For example, when I script my podcast, it takes me 2 buttons to make the outline I use for my script, which is 3 drop-down menus and 3 bullet points in each drop-down menu, all with different colors, as well as an option to add more drop downs with 3 more bullet points. It makes it super easy to quickly title the episode if I had an idea, as well as add 3 main points for the episode without having to write out the entire thing. So I have a general idea of what I do want to write whenever I sit down and get to like the full script. And it makes it a lot easier, and the colors are super fun. So yeah, shout out Notion. That's all though for this week. I hope you had an incredible New Year's. I went to bed at 9 o'clock and I woke up at 5. I went to work and then I realized I didn't have work that day, and so then I went home. So then most people would sit and complain like, oh, I was up at 5 in the morning, but I wake up then anyway, so it's not like it's a change in my day exactly. So I wasn't that affected. It was cool that I got to go home. But yeah, I have to go back to school in a week or 2, which sucks. But hey, gotta do what you gotta do. Excited to see my friends again, I guess, but you'll still hear and see this podcast every week. I'm curious to see what Apple will show off this year, and I'm curious to see if I'll ever apply for my internships, but who knows? Until then, I hope I have another YouTube video out by the time this episode comes out, which is really going to be this episode, but in a shorter form with a few more studies and with a few extra things. But yeah, anyways, I finished watching The Finest Assassin Got Reincarnated in Another World. Pretty good. I mean, general cliche isekai harem anime, but I mean, it has its own twist. It was fine. I recommend you watch it. This was the first time I think I ever saw an MC that didn't know, or that knew that the females were infatuated with him. I had never seen it before in my life. And then I started watching Komi-san Can't Communicate. Absolutely adorable anime. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix, so go give that a watch. You all have Netflix, even if you don't watch anime, so do that. But regardless, this is what happens when you go off your script. Thank you for listening to this episode of Seriously Funny. I will talk at you next week. Peace.